there's no owner's manual to life. So like nobody tells
No.
you that you're not supposed to focus on bullshit, you know,
Yeah.
until they do, until you learn it for yourself. And then you know, hopefully can improve your life as such. But like, yeah, I mean, I think you're right. It's the, we're cursed with this like half animal, half divine being that has consciousness of something greater than ourselves. And there's nothing else on earth like us in that respect. And that's, I mean, it's a very tortuous sort of existence. You know, it's that suffering is the default setting of life.
Greetings, Legion, and welcome to episode 214 of Into the Necrosphere. My guest this week is Matteo Von Bewitcher of the band Bewitcher, here to take me on a guided tour of every track available on their 10-year retrospective that they just put out on Century Media Records. That release is called Deep Cuts and Shallow Graves. We spoke about the band's past, we spoke about their future, we spoke about contemporary issues, we actually got into the controversy around Vince McMahon of the WWE, and you all know me, I'm partial to a bit of pro wrestling talk, so I was certainly not going to say no to that. That will be coming your way in just a few moments, but before we get to that, it's time to spotlight another fine independent act that I have unearthed for all of you. The band in question this week is Ferox Occulta out of the United States. They have just put out a brand new release called Oniric Citadel. I'm going to play a song for you off of that right now. This is called Path of the Prism. That was Path of the Prism by Ferox Occulta off the album Onerix Citadel, available right now on Bandcamp. And as always, the link to Ferox Occulta's Bandcamp will be found by you in the description to the podcast. If you like what you heard, you can head over there, buy yourself some music, and let them know who sent you. If you are in an unsigned band and you want to get your stuff heard, make sure you drop me a line on intothenecrosphere@gmail.com or hit me up on any of the socials. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on X. And if I like what I hear, I will feature it on the show. Also, if you're new to the podcast and disgracefully you have yet to hit that subscribe button, then the time to change that is now. Here's the opportunity for you to grab the closest folding chair and beat the subscribe button on your platform of choice until it begs you for mercy. Also, make sure that you are sharing the podcast. If the spirit moves you to do so, you can leave me a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple. And of course, you can support the podcast by buying yourself a t-shirt or a hoodie or any of the other fine merchandise on offer on the Into the Necrosphere Teespring store. I am also a member of a cabal of fine, upstanding men known as the Horsemen of the Podcasting Apocalypse, dedicated to bringing you high-quality entertainment from Monday to Sunday. We start on a Monday with Horrorwolf 666, hosted by Brandon Legion. Yours truly casts hexes and slays poses every Tuesday on Into the Necrosphere. Every Wednesday, Sensei Mike Hill brings another episode of Everything Went Black. He returns on a Thursday with my favorite podcast of the week, Necromaniacs, alongside his co-hosts Sheriff Mike Scandato and Professor Jeff Kashid. A great way to set your viewing agenda for the weekend ahead. But before you get into those horror movies, you need to first listen to the sinister minister Carl Hikara as he takes you on a guided tour through the dark, weird, arcane, and esoteric on his podcast, Soul Knox, posting episodes every Thursday and every Sunday. And then finally, the man they call Cheyenne of the band Trivax has a podcast. It's called Iblis Manifestations. He drops an episode when you least expect it, but you can surely expect fireworks when he does so. His guest on this past week's installment was the owner of the underground label Nuclear War Now. I highly recommend that you check that out. It was absolutely fantastic. Continuing this theme of DIY, creating an independent path forward for underground music. Really fascinating and compelling listen. Like I said, I would definitely suggest that you listen to it if you haven't done so already. Another thing that I would suggest you do is once I'm done with Matteo, don't go anywhere, because we're going to be listening to some new music. First of all, I'm going to be talking to you about some of my favorite releases of the past few weeks. On tap this week is new releases by Chelsea Wolfe, Hulder, Job for a Cowboy, and Karkosa. And then it is time for the weekly news rant. We're talking this week about the thickening plot as far as AI album covers are concerned, particularly with the old geezers in Pestilence mixing it up with their fans online for daring to voice an opinion, the mounting momentum behind a possible Pantera reunion is also under discussion, and of course we listened to some new cuts by the likes of Rotten Christ, Crawl, Sarcasm, Midnight, and many others. The weekly news rant is a fast favorite amongst tenured listeners of Into the Necrosphere, so if you are new to the podcast, stick around for that. Brace yourself for some pretty sharp opinions at the best of times, but like I said, you all seem to like it, and I love doing it, so that's why I continue. Right now, though, sit back as I welcome to the podcast for the first time ever, Matteo Von Bewitcher. All right, so welcome to Into the Necrosphere. I need to double check very quickly. Are you Unholy Weaver of Shadows and Incantations, or are you Infernal Magus of Nocturnal Alchemy?
Talk about those old names. Yeah.
Those are fucking brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant.
I'm the Weaver.
The Weaver,
formerly known as the artist, formerly known as Unholy Weaver. Yeah, those were the good old days when we had names that were as long as our album titles. You know.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. So, how is everything going with you? How's everything kind of going with what's your feeling about the band? 10 years in, you've got this retrospective that you've just put out. I feel like there's more attention on the band than I can recall there being for a while, which is great. There's like momentum building. But from your perspective, how are you experiencing that?
It's been, every time I get this question now, it's kind of like the same like thing comes to mind immediately, where it's just like, I didn't think you would get this. I mean, I don't think that 10 years is something that you think that far ahead when you're starting something like this. So it is crazy to look back and just go, what the hell? Like we've been kind of at this for a while and actually accomplished some stuff that I don't think that I ever imagined us doing. So it is cool to be able to do this comp and have these tracks as that walk down memory lane, and just be able to like remember all those times and what was going on at the time and everything else. So it's kind of a trip, man.
I mean, folks may not be aware of this unless they've actually gone and dug into your background. But you and Magus originally started the band as a studio project. How did you guys meet?
Oh, we've known each other forever since we were kids, basically. We met like right out of high school, and we're in and out of bands together for years. Mm. And the last thing that we were doing together had kind of fallen apart, and I'd kind of gone on my own for a little while doing some of my own material, and just kind of honing my songwriting and trying to get things more into a kind of black metal frame of mind. And that was about the time, right around 2012, that I asked him if he wanted to do this thing that I had in mind for a blackened speed metal band of sorts, and the rest is history, man.
You guys grew up together on the mean streets of Portland?
We're both from Fargo, North Dakota originally, actually. So
oh, really?
Yeah, man. We migrated out here back in the early 2000s, so we've been around for a while.
And how many people have asked you, is Fargo, North Dakota really like it is in on the TV show, or do they really speak like that in Fargo the way that they do on the movie?
Well, when the movie came out, I remember being, I think, probably in high school or something like that, and I was like, we don't talk like that. How could they do this to us? And then I moved away and came back a few years later and realized, oh, yeah, they actually do talk like that.
I've never visited, so I mean, I know, I literally the only thing I know about it is based on what I've seen on Fargo, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Brock Lesnar grew up in Bismarck, North Dakota.
Oh, I hadn't heard that. I thought he was a Minnesota boy, so Bismarck.
I think he grew up in Bismarck, and then he moved. I'm speaking under correction, and he moved to Minnesota, and I think now he lives in Saskatchewan. He lives in he lives in Canada. He's probably now going to live in seclusion after those tales came out of his backstage antics.
He can live anywhere as long as it's underground.
as long as there's not a paparazzi lens to see what or to take a photo of him. I assume from kind of the knowing nod that you gave me when I brought that up, you know what's happened with or you know the stories around Vince McMahon, John Laurinaitis, and Brock.
Oh yeah. I've been following it pretty closely, or as closely as I fucking care to, at this point, because it's pretty gnarly stuff, man.
Yeah, dude. It was weird reading it because part of it is horrifying. Like I know Mick Foley spoke about this on his podcast, and he said he feels the way when he first read the story, he feels the way that he felt when the story about Chris Benoit came out, when Chris Benoit killed his family. But another part of me kind of looks at it and goes, I don't know if I'm surprised. I mean, I've never hated McMahon whatsoever. As a matter of fact, I mean, I still think he's one of the greatest heel characters ever. I respect what he did as a promoter, especially in the late 90s. I respect the fact that he was willing to put his body on the line as well, and he had some pretty crazy and really fun matches of his own. But then, like I said, there's part of me that thinks, he's an insanely rich guy who has had like a main lining of adrenaline going into him for the vast majority of his life. At some point, you're going to have to reach to some pretty extreme extreme acts, extreme behaviors to get your kicks.
Yeah, for sure. Like you got to hand it to the guy. He knows entertainment probably better than anybody. I mean, he's been putting it on. He's been doing it at a top level for 40, 50 years at this point. But like you said, when you got that kind of power and that kind of money, you're going to get into some weird shit pretty quick, and it's going to be like, you know, it's going to take more and more to get you there. And it is not surprising in the slightest, considering some of the stuff we've seen from him in public and heard about him, you know, from secondhand sources or whatever. So not surprised at all, but it's pretty, I mean, if it all turns out to be true, man, whew.
Well, this is also the thing, right? So I spoke to my friend Cheyenne about this, and I was saying, look, I'm still on the side of give the man his day in court.
Mm-hmm.
Let him, you know, if he's proven guilty, you know, throw the book at him. But I'm not ready to say, you know, the guy, you know, let's get the gallows out for the dude straight away. I'd at the very least want to see evidence, because it could very well be the ravings of a lunatic. The one thing that did give me pause for thought, I don't know whether you could stomach reading the text messages. I was like, I don't know if that is the vernacular of an 80-year-old man. I can't see a 75-year-old speaking that way, using that kind of language, unless there's an added twist to the tale, and he's got some sort of fucking teenage pervert that he's got writing the text for him.
I think Cornette was the one that was postulating that because he thinks that Vince wants to be like cool, so he wants to sound like the kids. So like when he's texting somebody younger, he's gonna write like a teenager, you know.
Yeah.
And so because even though he is this like super well educated, you know, very well spoken guy, and doesn't actually like type like that, but he's trying to be cool, I guess.
Yeah.
That actually kind of tracks, because he does seem like that kind of guy.
Yeah, you're right, actually, and I mean, Cornette, as much as he can, you know, he can be a bit obnoxious, but he often is right. Like, he's one of those guys where you almost kind of resent him for being right as often as he is. Like, especially when you listen to his podcast, you know, he'll be saying stuff about AEW, he'll be saying stuff about, you know, a particular match or whatever the case may be, and you're like, fuck it, you know, I hate to give you your due, but you actually nailed that.
Cornette's a cranky little bastard, and that's why I love him, because that's what I'm turning into. So it's I relate to the guy.
Turning into that about life generally, or about wrestling. Like, where's the Cornettisms coming out?
Oh, in my life?
Yeah,
I'm just always been that way. I've been kind of curmudgeonly my whole life, but you know, I try to have a little bit more of a positive look at the world nowadays, or at least in my own sphere. I try to just try to look at the bright side of things a little bit more, but it's hard to contain the inherent just natural, I guess not pessimism, but realism that just always has to come out in whatever I'm thinking, you know, because I look at things the way they are. I don't look at the way I would like to see things. It's just you have to acknowledge reality for what it is, and that's why I like guys like Cornette, because he does look at reality the way it is.
Yeah, it's tough. I had a conversation. Funnily enough, I had a conversation with my parents about this, we were just generally talking about, you know, observations of various things going on in the world, and I after I'd ranted for about 20 minutes about various things that were pissing me off, I kind of stopped and I said, Jesus, you know, if you stop and you fixate on this too much, you can drive yourself absolutely insane. But it does feel like. I don't know what your perception of it is, but it feels like particularly in the West, like there's this fatigue, there's like this malaise that is set in amongst an awful lot of people, and it's like they just don't have the energy in them anymore to give a fuck. They you know, their lives have become extremely insular. It's very focused on their screen. It's become very selfish, and you know, that in turn leads to, you know, really horrible outcomes.
Yeah, I've been watching a lot of videos and just like taking in a lot of information on this subject of the civilizational decay that we're sort of living in, and that we seem to be living in, at least. And you know, it's crept its way into the music, into Bewitcher's lyrics and stuff a lot too. But you know, it's one of those things where, like, maybe because we've solved so many of humanity's problems, so to speak, you know, in just terms of like health and like living longer and being able to feed ourselves and shelter ourselves, all the basic things are kind of taken care of for a lot more people than there ever was before. And now this sort of easy living, so to speak, has turned into this whole other set of problems that we're now dealing with. And like, I honestly think the pervasiveness of the internet and just social media, it's causing a whole new black plague. And it's like the mental illness that social media is causing in people. And like you said, the screens and the solitude, the loneliness of isolation is it's a huge problem, and it's going to be the thing that we have to fight the most, I think, as a species going forward.
Yeah, no, I would agree, and I actually think you've got it spot on as far as a lot of what we see in terms of really distasteful human behavior. I think some of it's definitely spawned by this dopamine addiction people have got, for social media, and it filters from the politicians on down. And then at the same time as well, I think it's the byproduct of a too comfortable life. If you go and take a look at, some of the few tribes, living, in very, very rural or very, very basic hand to mouth existence, living in rural parts of Africa, as an example, an awful lot of the things that are very high up on the, trending list on Twitter or X, doesn't concern them. They don't think about it. They're thinking about where to get their next meal. Yeah. Or, they're thinking in some cases, how do we approach the next hunt? And it's almost like human beings need some sort of struggle, and when there's nothing for them to struggle about, they conjure up things to struggle over. And at the end of the day, it's an awful lot of, I think, very unwisely invested energy that people end up expanding on just nonsense.
Yeah. There's no owner's manual to life. So like nobody tells you that you're not supposed to focus on bullshit, until they do, until you learn it for yourself. And then you hopefully can improve your life as such. But like, yeah, I mean, I think you're right. It's the, we're cursed with this like half animal, half divine being that has consciousness of something greater than ourselves. And there's nothing else on earth like us in that respect. And it's a very tortuous sort of existence. It's that suffering is the default setting of life kind of thing,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just backtracking to the wrestling. Did you see the meme that came out about the dark side of wrestling as soon as the Vince McMahon story broke? It's like this dude like standing in the background. I think they might have even used, I'm trying to think who like some WWE wrestler from an era I stopped watching, like coming out of the shadows and looking like this is how the producer of Dark Side of the Ring is behaving right now.
I don't think I've seen that one. That's good though.
Oh, dude, that's going to make for an entire series. An entire season's worth of Dark Side of the Ring is going to be dedicated to Vince McMahon after this.
Dude, I can't even imagine the movies that are going to get made about this and the documentary series, and like, dude, it's going to be endless. This guy has been around for so long.
Who would play Vince McMahon though? There's no one that can do that. I know they were doing a biopic, or at least there was talks about doing a biopic of him once.
Yep.
I don't think there's a single actor that would ever do that guy justice. I mean, like again,
put that out, right?
Take the perversion out of it. There are so many classic moments that you can ascribe to that man, and I don't know if you like how much you were watching during like 1999, 2003, 2004, when he had his feud with Hulk Hogan, which I think was around 2003, 2004. Do you remember the bit that they did where he had Sable in the ring with him, and I think Stephanie was there as well, Hulk Hogan is there, and they're arm wrestling over, I think the dude's name was Zakk Wylde. It's like a wrestler that was on crutches. They're arm wrestling over Zakk Wylde getting a contract, and so Vince cheats to win. And says, "Tell that crippled freak to get out of my ring," and takes his crutch and throws it after him. It's like such pantomime villainy, but it is so fucking funny. Like whenever I'm having the shittest day, that's the kind of thing I'll go back and watch, like that, or Ric Flair promos from the 80s. But yeah, some of the promos that Vince cut, the very famous "Life sucks and then you die," the one where he said, "My name is Vince McMahon, thank God," and I'm damn proud of it. Just genius, absolute genius.
No, dude, and he came up with all like so many of the other great moments that we know that we remember as kids or whatever. Yeah, the time you're talking about, my fandom kind of fell off for a while right around that time, so I wasn't watching it at that time, but I have gone back and checked some of that stuff out. It's pretty badass. And yeah, dude, Vince is like, dude, just his you're fired, like that voice is just it's iconic, you know. It's
just
a bad guy.
one final comment on Dark Side of the Ring. Did you watch the New Jack special?
Have I not seen that yet? Is it newer? Did it just come out?
I think this must have been like season 4.
Season 4. I've watched them all at some point, so yeah.
I mean, it's like New Jack's entire life is a Dark Side of the Ring special.
It is.
I mean, you know, but the whole thing where he pushed the guy off the scaffold, not pushed him off. So this guy had done a scaffold match with him, like a couple of years previously, botched a spot, and it caused New Jack to get his skull cracked.
Yep.
And so there was a rematch in XPW. And he bought a cattle prod from a fucking like a pawn shop down the road on the day of the match, electrocuted the guy, and basically told him, "So long, you know, in so many words, I hope you die, motherfucker," and threw it off the scaffolding. I mean, the dude is nuts. But even if you're not a wrestling fan, I would urge anybody to watch that New Jack episode of Dark Side of the Ring. It's one of the most. It's just surreal. It's mind blowing that. That somebody could be like that unhinged, but he makes everything seem so rational. I mean, the guy was an apt, demonstrable sociopath.
Absolutely. Like, yeah, I was gonna say half brilliant like entertainer tactician, and half just complete psycho.
Yeah.
Mass transit incident, man. Like, what more needs to be said?
Yeah. Well, I mean, his first promo, I think it was one of his first promos at Smoky Mountain Wrestling, when he was like, "Shout out to my man OJ, too less to worry about." That is some of the most incendiary shit I mean, especially at the time. Like, this wasn't like he waited for the TV show to come out and a couple of people got upset. This was like when it was on the news 24/7.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, just what people rolling their eyes, going, "How can you like that wrestling shit?" But anywho, so one of the things I wanted to talk about, and I mentioned this to you before we hit record, was I kind of wanted us to take a tour down deep cuts and shallow graves, because a lot of this music comes from the old days, or has I would imagine, a special place, at least in your, in the band's legacy. And I was kind of keen for you to give me a tour of, maybe what your thinking was at the time, where you guys were at as a band. I mean, some of these songs would have dated back to when you guys were a studio project, right?
Yeah, most of it is from the demo years. So, you're talking 2013 to 2015. So that like 1.5-2 year period right there. We were just kind of doing it all in our bedrooms, basically.
Well, what sparked the decision for you guys to start playing live?
Because we've always played live and we've always been band guys like that, but we just couldn't find the right person to kind of fill out the lineup for a while, and we were kind of still feeling out the sound of the band, and we had enough songs where it was like, well, let's just get them recorded, and then we can just kind of give them to somebody to play, you know what I mean? So that we're not like having a third person in there to have to like figure out the sound with. We can get that established and then bring in the live guy. Yeah. And the original plan was to not have a permanent drummer. It was to have like a carousel of different people coming in and out. So it didn't work out that way.
You pretend they've been murdered or they've died, like the drummer on Spinal Tap.
Yeah, exactly. That was that was our inspiration. Let's just get one that blows up, and
Yeah. At that point, were you guys still in Fargo, or had you already moved to Portland?
No, this was long after we moved to Portland. This was
all right. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I know obviously bands like Vitriol, and a couple of names from Portland. But what's the Portland metal scene like, generally speaking?
I mean, it was pretty vibrant at one point, but I think COVID I think it was already kind of on the downward slide for a bit there, and then COVID kind of killed everything, and it's been slowly creeping back. But honestly, I'm not really in the scene as much nowadays. I'm not really going to a lot of shows, so I don't know exactly what's going on. But there are bands. There's always bands doing stuff.
And what's made you decide to kind of scale back from that?
Getting old and just not caring.
Yeah. getting old and not wanting to be around the crowds.
Man, I mean, I'm always kind of just kind of a homebody anyways, but nowadays it's like I don't really party that much anymore. Like, just trying not to hit the sauce and all that kind of stuff. And so it's just been easier to like stay home and just not really and focus on other stuff, stuff that's more productive.
How, if you don't mind me asking, just because I'm going through something similar at the moment, how long have you been off the source for?
I'm not off it. I'm just trying not to do it. I mean, like it's more of a moderation kind of thing. Because I've struggled with it for a while, and it was one of those things where you have to find a balance in life. Because I mean, if you can turn it off, and maybe that works for you, but those temptations tend to haunt you if you're not careful, and if you don't really have that resolve. And for me, it's more of a let's just make it be a two and done kind of situation. It's like a walk away.
Yeah.
So that's a good place for me to be, I think.
Yeah. No, I mean that's been typically my approach too. I hate being hungover so much that I like, even when I start to feel like I'm drunk, I get annoyed because I'm like, oh fuck me.
Yeah.
This is tomorrow, and potentially the next day is written off as well. But I was on vacation in December. I came back and I decided I needed to lose a bit of weight. So I thought, since my diet is already quite carnivorous, I'm gonna give the carnivore diet a go. And it's now exactly a month to the day. Haven't touched a drop of alcohol. Only been eating eggs and meat, basically. And I got to say, like, just from basic things like sleep quality and energy, I feel fucking sensational. I mean, I am definitely going to have. I bought some very, very good wines back from South Africa. I didn't buy them to decorate the kitchens, so I will be having them at some point. But I'm kind of trying to push that out a little bit, because I'm like, fuck, I feel I'm 44 years old now. I feel like I'm 34, especially the last, I'd say, 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, that's killer, man. Like the lack of alcohol, and then that doubling up on the protein, that's really going to like make a difference in how you feel, I'm sure.
Yeah, it still makes me sad to see cinnamon rolls and stuff and go, oh, I can't have that because of my diet. But I'll get over it. Okay, but let's get to the record. So, Manifesting Darkness, track 1. Give me the skinny on that.
Well, that one, along with the next track, were part of the sessions where I was writing songs for the upcoming 4th album. The original idea was to just have like 13 or 14 songs to choose from for the next record, and then we can have maybe 9 or 10 for the record, and then have a few left over, and we can use those for whatever we want. And then the idea for the comp actually became a reality, and these were the first 2 songs. That Manifesting was actually the first song that I'd written for the whole shebang. So it is sort of the big bang point of everything that's going to happen in the next year or so. And it had to be like a really ripping, fast, thrashy kind of song to really kind of give that impression of this, the new creative explosion that is coming.
I have to say, in preparation for us speaking, I went back and I listened to all the all the back catalog, and I was reminded by how good Cursed Be Thy Kingdom is. Like just the flow of the record. I love the way that you kind of have this really cool sort of atmospheric instrumental right at the beginning, and then when the music actually kicks in, it sounds more confident than anything you guys have done on Under the Witching Cross and on the self-titled debut for me. Like it's a really self-assured record, and actually interesting that you give the context, because Manifesting Darkness and Our Lady of Speed kind of feels there's a similar mindset there to me.
Yeah. Like, and again, they were written really close together. The idea was to kind of give a taste of both worlds. So like I think there's a maturity in the writing for those songs that is maybe not there on the first couple of records, but it is on Cursed. But it's also got the fury and the fire of the early stuff. So it's kind of like a nice walk in the line kind of thing. Yeah.
And then on track 3, you do what some would deem unthinkable, and that's to inject fury and fire into a Motley Crue song.
Yeah, we like Motley Crue. I mean, we like a lot of 80s stuff. We're very influenced by all that shit. So like, Bastard's such a sleazy, nasty song, and we're a sleazy, nasty band. So let's get it on.
So question for you about the 80s. You are, I'm going to assume, a Wasp fan, because otherwise the conversation's done.
Well, let's get out of here then.
No,
you got me. You got me. Yeah, big fan.
But yeah, I was just about to say, like, I that to me is like, they were, like, as far as like glam bands are concerned, I wouldn't really even call them a glam band as such. They dressed the part, but there was like a real, like a menace, like there was a layer of menace to Wasp's music that just most other bands of that ilk, that, you know, in that style, they just did not possess.
Dude, if they were glam, they were the evil glam band. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, that's why they were cool. It's like
yeah,
they were evil as fuck.
they were the Gorgoroth of glam.
Yeah, the Gorgoroth of glam.
I'm not sure how much Blackie Lawless would appreciate or possibly identify with that.
You're like, who the fuck is Gorgoroth?
Yeah. What did you think of the? I mean, I know there was like a massive furor about him using backing tracks for his singing and stuff, but I listened to a lot of those clips very, very carefully. I mean, I can still hear him singing. I know the songs like the back of my hand, so you can hear the nuances in his voice that differ from the record. From my perspective, if he's got a backing track to just kind of help him stay on course and, you know, complete a show, I don't really see what the harm is, to be honest with you.
Yeah, people have been shitting on him for a while now, and it's like, dude, he's coming back. He's touring the States. Like, let him do what he's got to do. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of things that I disagree with people doing, but I mean, it's, if it works for them, then what do I care? You know,
a dude is also 67 years old.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not, you know, for him to play the style of music that he plays, it's, you know, and especially sing the way he sings. You know, this isn't like, there's very, very few older gentlemen that can maintain that level of energy and that level of power in their voice at that age. So for me, even if he's only singing 5 songs and the other 10 is backing track, you know, that's not the end of the world. As long as 9-5 Nasty, Sleep in the Fire, as long as those songs are sung, you do whatever you want with the rest. You can leave the stage for all I care.
Yeah, play the first 5 records and you can take, you know, whatever. But like, that's that's a really tough vocal style, man. Like, we've covered Wasp, and like I used to really try to do that Blackie kind of thing, and it is much more difficult than you would think.
I was about to say it's incredibly unique, because it's like there's people that can do that, like screaming in key. They can do that, and they do it really well. But like there's like an additional layer of complexity to the way he does it, because he's not just screaming in key. I mean, I can't even quite put my finger on it. It's just there is nobody else that sounds like him.
He's got kind of like a pop sensibility with it too, because it does do a lot of clean, like oohs and like those kind of things, like the really high ones, and so it's not just gruff like yelling in key. It's a lot of others. Yeah, like you said, there's that extra level of nuance there.
But again, highlight of that band for me, it's just because it was the first record of theirs that I ever got. But I remember hearing, I was about 12, 13 years old, hearing Manimal for the first time. And that intro is just like, I mean, it's so 80s, and it's so something that you would never ever hear today. I mean, like, you know, I'm going to tell you a story about a little boy. It's like just genius. Ever since I was a little boy, I've only had one thing on my mind: women. All right, so next you've got Speed Till You Bleed.
Hell yeah, one of the all-time Bewitcher classics, dude. It's off the Midnight Hunters demo, which is our 3rd demo tape that we did, and it is the quintessential, just like speed metal, you know, just 2.5 minute ripper. This particular version has a vocal style that I don't do anymore because I can't do it, but there's a huge falsetto thing right at the beginning, and then another one kind of later on where I actually like hit notes that I haven't been able to hit in 10 years, but it's cool, you know, and I think it's probably the best version of that song that's recorded so far, honestly.
Initially, like, how has your vision for the band evolved since you got started? Because you were kind of alluding earlier to, like, well, you know, I was kind of shaping my black metal vision for this. How, like, where are you now versus where you kind of initially anticipated being, I guess, is the question.
Well, we formed the boundaries for the band like really early on. We haven't really strayed too far out from them. Like that, there's the occasional pushing out of the boundaries a little bit so that we can, because we always had the same influences. It's always like, that first wave of black metal, and that early speed metal stuff. And then you got like trad metal, like new wave of British metal kind of stuff. And then a little punk and a little 70s, 80s hard rock. That's the whole spectrum right there. And then everything is just kind of fine tuning, the different, those four different things. Just kind of like you bring some up, you bring some down. Every record is a little bit different. So it's always just been a process of like playing with the formula, so to speak. But as far as the vision goes, like it really hasn't changed at all. It's always been, let's just be a heavy metal band that does this style from the early 80s, but let's do it in a current kind of way,
What style of music were you playing in bands previously?
It was a lot of thrash and just like mellow death kind of stuff, I call it clusterfuck metal because it was just like all over the place. Members didn't, every member had their own thing they wanted to do and like these things, and it would just be a mess. So like the bands they never went anywhere. But it was along the same lines, but this is just a little more. Bewitcher became a lot more focused and, unidirectional.
Yeah, that clusterfuck metal is a perfect way to describe. I mean, I live in the UK now, but I'm originally from South Africa, and I've joked about this many times on the podcast. But for whatever reason, the country does an awful lot of things really well, but what we do not do well is play metal, and part of it is because if you look at any band photo of the vast majority of South African bands, you will see one person is going to have a Lamb of God t-shirt on, one person will have a probably an In Flames t-shirt on. The other one's going to have an Iron Maiden t-shirt on, and the other one is going to have some like Cannibal Corpse, something brutal. And somehow they want all of those influences to coexist to equal degree at all times, and so the music just sounds fucking terrible because of it.
That's what happens, and it's sort of the mark of immaturity in a young music career. Some people are very young and they get a band together and it works right out of the gate and they're off to the races. They're 19, and they're on a major label and shit. That doesn't happen for most people. Most people have to kind of ease into it. And if they actually become adept at making music, it's only after a trial of doing some clusterfuck shit, or that it just, everybody's got that different t-shirt and they're all, there's a death metal guy, there's a black metal guy, there's a punk guy, and it's a mess. And that's what happens.
So Midnight Hunters was your last demo before you guys got signed. Was that the demo that got you guys picked up? Your first label was Diabolic Might Records, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
So what was Midnight Hunters the catalyst for that deal to happen?
That was sort of we did a compilation of all 3 demo tapes, and it was called Grand Rites of the Wicked. And it only did 30 to 50 copies. It was very super limited run, but I think the original idea when Diabolic Might came to us was he wanted to do that compilation as a vinyl, and kind of along the lines of what we just did with Deep Cuts. But I think the idea was because we wanted to do a record, we wanted to do a full-length record. And he was like, well, I don't have the money to pay for studio time, so you'd have to finance it yourself, but I could put it out. And so we just kind of came to an agreement where it was like, so it was actually the compilation that I think it was the totality of the demos that kind of got us the first deal.
And what was it like on a small label like that versus where you're at right now? I mean, Century Media is highly organized. Obviously, you've got the very best of the best doing your PR. I mean, the step up must be night and day.
I mean, it's definitely a different scene. It's been a big adjustment overall, but because we lived in that indie world for so long. Even before Bewitcher, I was working with underground tape labels from the Ukraine and shit. It's like it's a very different scene, right? Yeah, man. It's there's pros and cons to both. As with everything, but it was a good time. It was an exciting time.
Yeah. So then next up, you guys move on to the Wild Blasphemy demo. You've got your four tracks on there. You got Wild Blasphemy, Rebellion at the Gates of Heaven, Black Speed Delirium, and Trial of Swords. Talk me through some of those tracks and then kind of that was your second demo that you put out.
Yeah. I think the thing I remember most about that was just trying to get the drums to sound a little more like drums and not like these clicky, like, like kind of drum machine kind of sounds. And just trying to get like a really just, I don't know, like evil was the word. We were just trying to make it sound as evil as possible and get like a cool, like, I don't know. And the songs were so, like, two of them lived on to go to the first record. The other two didn't. And they're really weird songs when I listen to them now. They're like Rebellion at the Gates of Heaven and Trial of Swords are like, I would never write songs like that today. So
how come?
It's not like a preference thing. It's just I can't. I wouldn't. My brain doesn't think that way anymore. So when I actually have tried to play those in the past, or like recently, I'm like, I would never do this today. Logically, it just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know. It's
so. How old are you now, if you don't mind me asking?
I turned 44 in a couple of weeks.
All right. Okay. So same age as me. So you would have been like early 30s, mid 30s when those songs were written.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but I definitely found the most that I changed, or you might argue it's say matured, but I don't know if matured is the right word. But the most I evolved as a person, my own personal evolution between 30 and 40, that to me was the most profound time. I feel like after 40, I wouldn't say I've stagnated, but it's been different. It's a different thing. It's like a kind of slowed down.
Sure.
But 30 to 40, I mean, for various reasons, I would call those the tumultuous years in my life.
Yeah, the 20s is like the time to make all the mistakes and learn absolutely nothing. You don't start learning stuff until you're 30, and then that's why
in your 30s you're trying to avoid the mistakes of your 20s, but you keep making bigger mistakes. So that was my experience of it.
Yeah, the early 30s were tumultuous. The period that Bewitcher was formed in was quite the neutron. Like what is that? Like a primordial star that was like forming. It was like a galaxy. Like it was just hot chaos all the time.
Yeah.
And I guess it did produce something good, but yeah, not the best time in my personal life.
Well, now that I know you're the same age as me, it also makes a lot of sense why you immediately picked up on the pro wrestling reference, and we could talk about that for eons most likely. But the so after Wild Blasphemy, we're on to the very first Bewitcher record. One question though, you mentioned earlier like an evil drum sound. So just so with level setting, like what is your idea of evil? Like if you thought about evil sounding records, evil sounding drums, like top three most evil sounding things you've ever heard.
Oh, well, okay. So when I was referring to the drums, I was actually going from like where I was referring to it getting a more organic like sounding drums.
Yeah.
For a more evil production overall. But on that note, so I'll say the first, I would say Venom black metal. I would say, which is an obvious one. Then I would say Merciful Fate Time was like the next thing that I heard that it was like, just it blew my mind as far as like how spooky it was and crazy and awesome. And probably Slayer Show No Mercy.
Yeah, definitely Slayer Show No Mercy. Yeah. Here's a question for you. I had the Skeletal Remains guys on here the other night, and we were talking about the new Kerry King single. I assume at this point you've heard it.
I actually have not checked it out yet, but
you haven't.
No, I mean I kind of heard that it just sounds like Slayer, so I
was just about to say, how much did you enjoy Repentless?
Again, not much. Honestly, with Slayer, like it kind of falls off for me after Divine Intervention. So, like,
I'm the same way. My view is that they made about an album's worth of decent material. If you take every single thing that they did after Divine Intervention, you piece it all together, like the choice cuts, you maybe have an 8-song record. But I mean, they were never again going to be the band that put out Seasons in the Abyss or
Guys all had some moments, but that was the last thing I really got into, I guess.
Yeah, I think that for me, Divine Intervention was still a great record. But I in recent years, I have gone back and really developed an affinity for Haunting the Chapel and Show No Mercy.
Yeah, dude.
And so the discussion with the Skeletal Remains guys was, we kind of wish that Kerry would have gone the whole hog and gone straight back to the retro roots and done something like that, which would have been, I mean, aside from being awesome, it would have been fucking huge as well, I think. But sadly not. I think maybe if you like Repentless and World Painted Blood, you're going to think this new song is great. But beyond that, it's not much to dig into, I'm afraid.
Well, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, though. Maybe he can't write like that anymore. Kind of like the way I was saying, like maybe you just can't write. You get to a point where you just don't write like you did 20 years ago or whatever. And this is how he does it now. I don't know. And maybe those are that modern Slayer sound. Maybe that's what he thinks people are going to like more or something. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah. No, possibly. I mean, and again, maybe more people will like it. It's just not. Yeah, it's not my vibe. What I will say though, I agree with you on Venom, but particularly for me, when it comes to like evil sounding Venom, the song Seven Gates of Hell is just absolute genius. Seven Gates, my favorite Venom song, Seven Gates of Hell and 1000 Days in Sodom. I think that is such an underrated track. And like on the few occasions I've seen, clips of them playing it live, it's just, I can just imagine it fucking killing when you play that song live.
It's super heavy, man. It's a really heavy song.
Yeah. All right. So then after the tracks off of the Bewitcher demo, we've got 4 songs: Harlots of Hell, Hot Nights, Red Lights, In the Sign of the Goat, which is the best name or the best titled track on the record, and Hedge Rider. So talk me through those.
Okay, so we got Harlots of Hell. In my opinion, the definitive version of that song is this demo track. This is demo version because we originally recorded it for some compilation that we were supposed to do that never happened. It was like a local thing, and something about that production, just the way the song sounds and like the solo and everything else, like in the vocals, like it's just so gnarly sounding. And I don't know, it's far superior to the version on the record, in my opinion. Hot Nights is another one of those, like it did end up on the record, but that version of it is cool just because it's got some goofy shit in it in the middle, like just me ad-libbing and stuff. And we just kind of had some fun. We were drinking pretty heavily in those days, and when we do the vocals, we would always record on a full moon in our practice space, which is just a storage unit, in a garage basically. And by the end of those sessions, we would be really tossed and just like having the best time and just hooting and hollering, and some of that ends up on those recordings. So,
yeah.
And then the last 2 tracks are something that we did for another, like a split that never happened. And they did end up as bonus tracks on the first demo compilation in 2015, but for the most part had never been released and never been heard by anybody. So those Hedge Rider is actually a early version of what Our Lady of Speed ended up becoming. So it's kind of, Our Lady of Speed is actually like a reworking of Hedge Rider, and you can hear the similarities if you really A/B them like that.
Yeah. So with this out, you kind of hinted at the new record. Have you got an idea of when Century Media are planning to put that out?
Yeah, but I can't tell anybody about
it. fair enough. Is it 2024?
It'll be this year. Yeah, that's what we're looking for. Mm-hmm.
And then you guys are out the road. So you're in, like, your next stop is in Spain.
Yeah, dude. So we start the next tour. We're going back to Europe for the first time in 5 years. It's going to be wild. And we get to start in Spain, do like almost a week there. And then we move on to Central Europe and lands beyond.
You guys must go over unbelievably well in Europe. I mean, which also, I guess, is I guess my comments validated by the fact that, you had your very first label that signed you was German.
Yeah. I mean, like, we've only been there once, but like it was great. And we were there with Visigoth, who has a great following in Germany and the UK and stuff. So like we had the benefit of kind of stealing their audience a little bit, but they dug us and we're stoked to go back, dude. And so many more countries that we've never been to. So it's going to be very cool.
Yeah. And any other plans? Anything that you would want to achieve that's kind of a blueprint in your mind, not necessarily something that's confirmed on paper yet?
I don't know, man. It's going to be a busy touring year, I think, once this next record comes out, and so we're just trying to go everywhere. You know what I mean? Like we're trying to hit Latin America, maybe Japan. You know, let's go, dude. Let's fucking go. Do more U.S. tours. We toured the shit out of the U.S. in 2022, so it's been well trodden ground, but we do need to do it again. So.
Awesome. Well, dude, I really thank you very much for your time. Congratulations on 10 great years, and I'm very much looking forward to what the future holds for you guys.
Same, man. Appreciate the time, and it was good talking to you.
Great stuff. Talk to you soon.
Cheers, Jackie.
Bye-bye. You just listened to the 2015 demo version of In the Sign of the Goat by Bewitcher. That features, of course, on their new album Retrospective, Deep Cuts and Shallow Graves, which is available on Century Media Records. Massive thank you to Matteo for his time. That version of that song, I just think is it's a little more... it's a bit more raw, a bit more edgy, and a bit nastier than the version that they had on Under the Witching Cross. But both are good. That one, I feel, is the superior. But I had a blast in that conversation. I hope you guys did too. And as always, the link to Bewitcher's Bandcamp will be found in the description to the podcast. So head over there and let Matteo and the lads know who sent you if you end up buying any music. Right now, I want to talk about some new stuff I've been listening to. I know I've not done a release roundup for a little while, so the reason for that mostly is time and the fact that I wanted to properly dig into these records before I shared my thoughts on them. We are going to start with one that may not potentially be seen as worthy of, or sorry, as grim, true, or cult enough. So for the next, if in your mind anything that is not extreme blasting black or death metal is garbage, then this might be an earmuffs moment for the next 90 seconds or so. Anybody who has been paying attention to the news rant will know, or will have guessed, I'm about to reference the new Chelsea Wolfe album. That album is called She Reaches Out to She, put out on Sargent House. So actually, sorry, Lorna Vista Recordings. I actually thought that she was still on Sargent House. I take back what I said. Lorna Vista Recordings. It's her first full-length since Birth of Violence, which came out in 2019. And it is absolutely fucking sensational. Now, as you would have heard there, the new Chelsea Wolfe material kind of goes away from the folk-inspired stuff of Birth of Violence and throws back more to the 2015 and 2017 records Abyss and His Spun. Both of those I absolutely loved. Birth of Violence, potentially I enjoyed more, but I think it was just it won out in its execution. It's not normally the kind of music that I would gravitate to. Abyss and His Spun had these really doomy sequences. It had loads of industrial. It was quite abrasive records, in spite of the fact that, you know, Chelsea's got this very kind of soft, delicate voice that she sings through. But on this new album, She Reaches Out to She, she kind of has all of that abrasiveness, but it's tempered with elements of what I would consider maybe Portishead, possibly some Nine Inch Nails, some Trent Reznor, maybe some of the experience that she had of dabbling in soundtracks. She did the score to the Ty West film X, has played a role in what this album sounds like, but I would definitely say this to me is one of the most complete Chelsea Wolfe offerings to date. She seems to just be gaining in confidence as an artist. She feels more secure in her skin, I think, than she ever has on any record that she's put out. And like I said, I think this is just absolutely sensational. Now, from one female musician who tends to go over the beaten track to somebody who probably, I think, has a bit in common, at least as far as her attitude is concerned, but certainly not in sound. Hulder have got a brand new record out called Verses in Oath, out on 20 Buck Spin. Came out on February 9th, 2024. And if you were a fan of Hotslastering, the previous record that Hulder put out back in 2021, brace yourself for quite a treat. So, long story short, I could spend hours analyzing this new record, but the gist of it is this. If you enjoyed the atmospheric black metal of the previous record, Hortslustering, Hymns of a Forlorn Peasantry, basically Hulder has gone and improved her sound, her approach, every single element of Hulder in every possible respect. It's more atmospheric, it's more brutal, it's more abrasive, the songs are better written, the production's better, the performances are better. It really does make it feel like Hortslustering was kind of her feeling out what she wanted to do. And obviously I know she had put out a bunch of singles and demos and stuff like that, but that was the first full-length record. But then this is just such a big, confident step forward. It is absolutely extraordinary, and it's an album that you can dig into and discover something new with every listen. I'm probably 20-30 listens in, and I still don't feel like I've properly absorbed everything that it has to offer. I know it's very early in the year, but do not be surprised if this record is not featured on the top 30 of 2024. It really is that damn good. Next up, we've got a record by a band that I feel has been unfairly slated, not by members of the Legion, but possibly by the metal community at large. Job for a Cowboy. Hated upon because of their presumably deathcore beginnings. Obviously, they put out their EP Doom back in 2005, was seen, written off as a MySpace band, but times most certainly have changed for the lads from Glendale, Arizona. Moon Healer, as you probably picked up from that snippet, is certainly no deathcore. It does have an awful lot in common with its predecessor, Sun Eater, which came out just under a decade ago. I absolutely loved Sun Eater. I loved the fact that the band were pushing the progressive side of their sound while still remaining brutal and still remaining, you know, reasonably aggressive. I feel with Moon Eater, some of the intensity has been dialed back even more in favor of that search for progression. And honestly, as much as I enjoy the record, I don't know how to feel about the scaling back of the intensity right now. I enjoy severity, I enjoy caveman knuckle-dragging violence, and you get some of it on Moon Healer, but possibly not enough. Now, I am tentative in saying that because I really do like what I've heard so far, and I think the more I get into this record, the more I'm going to enjoy it. But it's not an easy album to get your head around. It's, when I say progressive, it's very progressive. It is, you know, quite psychedelic, quite trippy. I know the concept kind of revolves around psychedelic drugs. But yeah, I would say it actually makes Sun Eater seem quite accessible, at least as far as how quickly you can get into it and start to enjoy and start to absorb from it. That being said, make sure you do check it out. If you're a fan of Job for a Cowboy, if you're not a fan of Job for a Cowboy, if you like Cynic, if you like progressive death metal period, I think there's plenty for you to get into on this. The performances, as you can imagine, is absolutely top-notch. The production sounds superb. It is a good record. I'm just not sure if I'm entirely in love with it just yet. What I am completely and utterly in love with, though, is the new Karkosa album, Esoteric Cult, which has been released on Redefining Darkness Records. These guys hail from Fort Wayne in Indiana. It is their debut full-length. They'd only, up to this point, put out an EP back in 2018 called Harvest of the Adept. But these four men, as soon as the album gets started, you know straight away mean very, very serious business. This is black metal of the probably Polish school, maybe a bit of Marduk, maybe a bit of Funeral Mist thrown in there for good measure, but there's also plenty of atmosphere. The main thing, the overriding element, though, is rage, anger, and just plain old piss and vinegar, and I absolutely fucking love it. The production is superb. Every single person in the band sounds absolutely possessed from start to finish. I think Rafael Palacios, I believe is how I pronounce his surname, his vocals are superb. Drumming is amazing. Really, this is one of my favorite new releases, and dropped this last Friday, so not listened to it quite as much as I have done Hulder, but it is certainly an album that would have found its way onto my top 30 of 2023. So that is about as confident an endorsement as I can give you. And I'm going to give you a full-length track off of that record right now. This is called Remnants of Creation. The band is Karkosa out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. The album Esoteric Cult, and you just heard a track off of that record called Remnants of Creation. The album is available right now on Redefining Darkness Records, and as always, the link to all of the musicians that I just mentioned will be available in the description to the podcast. I would love nothing more than to have Chelsea Wolfe or indeed Hulder on this podcast. So if you do go over there and you buy yourself anything, then give them a little nudge and tell them that the only place to be is right here on Into the Necrosphere. Right now, my friends, if you frequently use the phrase "not gonna lie," or even worse, its abbreviation NGL in text messages, then it's time to hit the bricks. This is my weekly news rant.
Round them up for judgment. And hang them where the world can see.
Alright, Legion, back into the breach once more, and we start as always on metalstorm.net, the finest metal news website in all the land. Tragic news is the first headline. Flesh God Apocalypse have parted ways with Paolo Rossi. Some of you have said and made suggestions about Flesh God Apocalypse albums that I should check out that may potentially sway my current overwhelmingly negative disposition towards the band. I must confess I've not yet gotten around to doing so. I know that they are technically very proficient, very good at what they do. It is just too polished and it lacks convincing severity. That I think is probably the biggest reason why I just cannot get with that band. No matter what I do, I have gone back and I have listened to many a Flesh God Apocalypse record, song. It just does nothing for me. Next up, Dotsfert have put out a new single called Restoration of Justice. It says here, Dotsfert put out a music video for Restoration of Justice, the first advanced single and opening track from their forthcoming studio album, Wrath, which drops on May the 10th, 2024 via Hypnotic Dirge Records. May 10th, interestingly enough, is the birth date of my daughter Meadow. So that random bit of information I give away completely free of charge. Let's hear what Restoration of Justice sounds like. So this is the new album will be the follow-up to their last full-length record, Suicide and the Rest of Your Kind Will Follow Part 2. That came out back in 2021. The band put that out independently. Prior to that, they put out a record called Diseased Remnants of a Dying World on Transcending Obscurity Records. And then before that, they were with Moribund Records for the Wastes of Life album. They've been around for a while now. I think their first record was in 2006. I did listen briefly to Suicide and the Rest of Your Kind Will Follow and thought it was all right. I kind of feel the same about this. It's not junk, but there's nothing particularly special about it. There's nothing that's instantly grabbing a hold of me and making for a particularly compelling listen. So I don't hate it, but I'm certainly not bowled over by it. We will, however, give it another 60 seconds. No, we're not. We're still going nowhere that I have an interest in revisiting. I mean, it's not a complete disgrace, and I would have been extra harsh on them had that been so, because, as I said, it is my daughter's birthday, so I expect nothing but the very best releases to be coming out on that day. But yeah, it just doesn't do very much for me. Okay, we move on. Linkin Park share a previously unreleased song. Now, I'm not going to, as I did last week, Last week I listened to a track by Kitty. I shan't be inflicting that on you guys again in this instance. No Linkin Park. I did have to make one comment, though. Last week's response to the episode with Carl Rasmussen was extraordinary. I mean, I had, old school members of the Legion, OG members of the Legion, drop me a note and say it's the best thing that they'd ever heard me do on the podcast. I had loads of new people drop me a note saying, I love the conversation, blah, blah, blah. Awesome. Great feedback. I was on a high. And then some soiled nappy of a man posts on YouTube, says he slays posers, plays Kitty on the podcast, or promotes Kitty on the podcast. And I was like, did you listen to the podcast? Like, my comments weren't positive. And he's like, couldn't get past the fact that you were promoting them. So clearly the concept of the news rant is lost on some. That does not influence my decision one way or the other to not play Linkin Park. I'm simply not playing them because I think their music fucking sucks. But yeah, I did find that exchange to be very funny. You can, as they say, you can't please all people all the time. You especially can't please fucking basement dwellers like the gentleman. And I'm assuming it would be a gentleman, but yeah, the gentleman in question. Okay, next up we've got a track by the Swedish death metal slammers Sarcasm. They are presenting a brand new single called Dying Embers of Solitude. It says here, the new single is from their next studio album, Morning Ghoul, which will be out on April the 12th, 2024 via Hammerheart Records. I cannot recall ever hearing a Sarcasm song before, so this will be my first time, possibly the first time for some of the Legion listening to that right now. So let's find out what they sound like. Okay, so there's a couple of things that I instantly don't like. Number one, after saying I hadn't heard these guys before, I found myself second guessing myself a little bit, because as soon as the song started playing, I was like, have I really not heard these guys before? And then I realized, no, I most certainly haven't heard the band prior to this, but they just sound like so many other bands that would have appeared on catalog CDs and cover CDs you got for free back in the day. And it would just have been one of those tracks you skip over after the first minute. But I think the real issue here is actually the vocals. I speak a lot about, when I talk about the kind of death metal vocals I don't like, and frankly black metal vocals too, I've referred to them as typewriter vocals, and it's because of that rhythm, that really kind of choppy rhythm that they follow. Like in this case, you understand what I mean? It's like it's not really presenting me with any sort of hook. I mean, it kind of does a job, but it's just not it's not adding anything. It doesn't add any layer of severity, intensity, call it, whatever you want to call it, to the music. It just sounds like it's there because it has to be there. And then also, I mean, these kind of folky melodies, I can see they sort of dabbling with a little bit with kind of the folky death metal, slight black metal influences. It just it sounds very half-assed to me. I don't find anything about this that is in any way motivating me to want to hear a fucking second more of it. So let's just put it that way, and let's move on. Next, Judas Priest have revealed another new song. They are 1 for 1, I think, if memory serves me correctly. We listened to the first single, which I enjoyed. The second single was that Crown of Horns debacle, which I thought was fucking dreadful. And now, with only 2 weeks left until the official release of Judas Priest's highly anticipated new album, Invincible Shield, a new single called The Serpent and the King has been released, and there is an accompanying lyric video. So I shan't be singing along, but we'll definitely give it a listen. There's something about that opening riff that reminds me very much of latter-day Metallica. And not to say that Judas Priest ripped them off in any way, not to say that Metallica are ripping off Judas Priest in any way. There's just something about it that sounds like the band are kind of just doing it they're just fucking around. It doesn't sound like they've got any fire in the belly. That's maybe the fairest way to say it. And I will admit, as many of you that listen to the News Rant regularly know, I am one of those people that think that most of everything not called Painkiller is inferior Priest. It's not superior Priest. Painkiller to me set the bar so high for this band. It's just something I don't think they will ever come close to topping it. Never. They had that one song, Judas is Rising, that was like almost on a par with the brilliance of the songs on Painkiller, but they've never really come close, in my view, to doing anything that even comes, within fucking sniffing distance of that. What I will say, to their credit, Rob Halford is 72 years old, and man, does he still sound good. I mean, I couldn't fucking dream of singing like that at the age of 43. So 72, and you still sound like that. And when you see him live, he still hits those peaks. I mean, maybe not as easily as he did before, but I mean, he's not like a lot of these other guys that have been around for a long time, like Axl Rose and stuff like that just doesn't quite cut it anymore, or whose voice, actually, frankly, if we're honest about Axl Rose, his voice has gone completely. But, he still sounds like a fucking $1,000,000. The song itself is not bad. It's better than that Crown of Horns muck. But does it make me any more excited about Invincible Shield? No. Then again, was I the target market for Invincible Shield? Also no. And if you scan down at the comments below, Clearly these folks are, well, there are a couple of folks that are very excited about it. Let's just put it that way. Better Than Raw says, the chorus could have been better, sure, but it's still an amazing song. I just love it. Metal Spartan says, Iron Maiden has to cut their album runtimes by half and stop making every song a damn epic, blah, blah, blah. That said, this new Judas Priest album is sounding awesome so far. So people clearly like it. That's all that matters. Who gives a shit what I say? I've got Painkiller, and it's an album that, frankly, I will never tire of listening to. One of the greatest records ever recorded. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And again, as I said, unfortunately for them, it's a record that is so good that they never came anywhere close to not even equaling it, just close to capturing 20% of its genius. Quite how it came to be, I mean, that they could capture lightning in a bottle to that degree, I have no fucking idea. Next up, we have Crawl out of Sweden. They are streaming a new track. Previous Crawl single we played on this very segment, and I loved it. I'm going to be disappointed if I don't love the new one. It says here, as part of their forthcoming studio release, Altar of Disgust, Swedish death metalers Crawl offer in listening another new track in advance called Until They Crawl. Let's listen. So, they have well-timed voice noise to kick us off. That riff, that groove is pH fat. I mean, it fucking slaps you in the face. I absolutely love it. When the song gets started, their vocalist, Joachim, I think is how I would pronounce it, Joachim Lingfeldt sounds like he's gargling with fucking broken beer bottles. And as a matter of fact, I think I may have mentioned that on the first time I listened to them on the news rant as well. This is thumbs up, without a shadow of a doubt. I think if you're a fan of that Sunset Studios style death metal, you are in your absolute element listening to this. More so, I would wager, than a great many of the other bands that attempt to do the same thing. Like, I feel like, I mean, there's a lot of bands like this, right? Entrails is one that comes to mind. Gatecreeper is kind of like this. This is actually grabbing me more than both of those two bands. And probably more so than many of the other bands that are going for that same vibe and that same sound nowadays. Both songs I've heard so far of this, as I said, absolute fucking thumbs up. And once again, kudos to Transcending Obscurity Records. I was raving last week about Constructive Leith, one of their new signings. They just seem to be going from strength to absolute strength. It was inevitable that we were going to have to talk about this. Slayer have announced reunion shows. Now, I'm not going to bother digging back through the archives to find when I predicted this, but I am very, very certain, and I think I may even be able to find easily some proof on the socials of me predicting that Slayer was going to get back together again. Not that I'm looking for a prize, because I'm pretty sure 90% of you guys did exactly the same thing. It was kind of it was inevitable, but then I did start to think, after Kerry King took the opportunity 2 weeks ago to run down every single one of his former bandmates, that, okay, maybe I was wrong. Maybe this really was the end. Turns out that was subterfuge, because as it transpires, apparently Tom Araya's wife is the reason why they are getting back together again. So I've actually skipped ahead just briefly to the Democrats' Guide to Rock Music Blabbermouth, and it says here, Tom Araya's wife fires back at trolls over the Slayer reunion. I have harassed him for over a year to make it happen. Sandra Araya, the wife of Slayer bassist and vocalist Tom Araya, has defended the band's decision to reunite this fall for a couple of headlining festival gigs 5 years after Slayer wrapped up its farewell tour. This past Wednesday, it was announced that Tom, guitarist Kerry King, guitarist Gary Holt, and drummer Paul Bostaph will perform at Chicago's Riot Fest and Louisville's Louder Than Life on September the 27th. It is being billed as the band's first gigs since November 2019. 3 days after the news of Slayer's comeback hit the wire, Sandra took to her Facebook and Instagram accounts to write, "Let's clarify for the trolls, Tom was done with playing. I have harassed him for over a year because our finances took a serious hit when he came off the road." That last bit, for those of you listening, bullshit. He agreed finally. We shared the news at Slayer's. We shared the news with Slayer's awesome managers, and they did the rest. So yes, without Tom, it wouldn't have happened. Without me bugging him, it wouldn't have happened. But go ahead with your drama. I, however, will be enjoying a few shows. I'm thankful he loves me and the fans enough to do this. I hope it would have taken more than his wife nagging to want to do it. He certainly seemed in the comments that he made to be pretty excited and positive about it himself. I have no feelings about this one way or the other. All know my thoughts on the quality of Slayer's music. If they were to announce that they were going to do a reunion and, hey, by the way, we've got new music and the first song comes out and it sounds like War Ensemble, then I'd go, oh, fuck, this is incredible. But to me, Slayer was kind of... I have developed an indifference towards certainly their recorded output post-Divine Intervention. I had a good time seeing them at supposedly the final show they played at Wembley. The fact that people are clutching their pearls over this, it doesn't make sense to me. There's so many other things in music, let alone anywhere else in the world, to get your panties in a bunch about. Slayer reuniting is the least of anybody's concerns. I'm sure again we'll talk about AI album cover art in just a bit, because that plot thickens and that drama is getting a little more out of hand. But Slayer reforming. Folks that did get to see them on the reunion shows, on the farewell shows, do yourself a favor, make sure you go and watch them. If you haven't taken your kids to see Slayer yet and they're into metal, now's your chance. Actually, if you think about it, there's really just upside to it. I'm sure they're going to do great shows, and it'll be a good time for all concerned. Quite where this leaves Kerry and his band, I'm not so sure about. And again, if you listen to that new Kerry King single, it really does sound like it just would have been a new Slayer record. And instead of having Tom do vocals, they got somebody else. So anyway, that's my take on that. Don't really give a fuck either way. On balance, I think it's probably better news than it is shit news. And I certainly don't understand why people are fucking sobbing about it. Okay, we move on. Morta Skult. Or Skult. I think I might have spoken about this last week. For whatever reason, I can't pronounce their name. I don't know how it's pronounced. Anyway, it's not important. Ahead of tomorrow's official release of their new full-length effort, Creation Undone, death metal band Morta Skult offer in listening the second and final single in advance called Perfect Prey. This actually, I'm recording this on Monday the 26th. So this article would have been, preceding the release of the record, which was this past Friday. I have actually given the album a very quick spin, not listened to it properly enough to share my thoughts, my innermost thoughts and feelings about the record with all of you. But let's hear what the track sounds like all the same. kind of like a lot of the other death metal bands we've listened to, maybe on this news rant, and probably in the last couple of months, you're entering crowded territory. The song doesn't cut the mustard, in my opinion. I know this band has a legacy, that goes back all the way to, whenever the fuck. As a matter of fact, goes back all the way to the 90s. This isn't the 90s anymore. There are at least 30 other death metal bands I would sooner listen to than this. Plus, Mortis Cult are also one of the, weirdly enough, old guard. It seems like it's more the old guard than it is anybody else, who is dabbling in AI cover art. We spoke about it last week. And actually, whilst we're at it, let me just find another article that I want to look up about this. So we spoke about AI cover art last week. Obviously, in view of Deicide using a computer to generate their Diablo 2 fucking tribute cover art nonsense. And this weekend, Pestilence, legends in their own right, came out with probably one of the most hideous covers I've ever seen in my entire life. But then they took it a step further and they actually started arguing, and by they, I'm going to assume it was Patrick Mermelli from the band. But Patrick and all the band, like I said, could have been somebody else, started arguing with fans who thought that I don't really know what to call it. It's like a bad cartoon. As a matter of fact, on Metal Injection, there's an article about it, and Greg Kennelty, who wrote the article, writes, he describes this in the most perfect way possible. Let me just see if I can find it. Essentially, he says that this is the cover art for this upcoming Pestilence release is like something that you would do in a few clicks right before lunch, and he is spot on with that. But anyway, back to the argument about it. So there was they released this cover. People told them it looks like a load of dog shit. Then there's a follow-up that is posted by Pestilence. It says, for the sake of fairness, this is part of the article. It says, blah, blah, blah. How is the second cover way better than the first one? Please explain. The AI is everywhere. Are we so caught up in the past that we do not embrace technology? Is recording with tape better than digital? Is taking a Polaroid picture better than the newest tech phone? It's still about the music and lyrics, and that's real. Now, they were comparing this new cover to the cover art for Consuming Impulse, which apparently at the time that it came out, a lot of people didn't like. It was done by the great Niall Squeal James, who I believe passed away 2 years ago. Rest in peace. But the commentary on Metal Injection is, first of all, let's not pretend like the AI artwork is even in the same universe as Consuming Impulse. Niall Squeal James did a great job with the classic artwork and put real effort and time into it. The artwork for Levels of Perception, which is this new Pestilence release, feels like a few keystrokes before a lunch break, nothing more. Like I said, spot on. Sorry, but artists in the pen and paper world, as well as digital, who honed their craft over the years, shouldn't be compared to that. Doubly so considering the AI is using artwork and photography created by said passionate individuals to create. It's not just making the shit up out of thin air. See Unleash the Arches' recent issues. I reflected upon this in view of this article and in view of what I said on last week's episode. I think there's a couple of problems with AI artwork. First of all, like I said, how many people have we had on this podcast where we'll talk to them and say, tell me about the record, the person did the album cover for you, and you can sense genuine excitement. They know they're putting out a great product, and for them, the cover art, the sleeve, all of it tells a story. Everything works symbiotically together. So everyone who I've met on this podcast over 214 episodes who's genuinely invested in what they're releasing, there's a huge amount of time that goes into the cover artwork or photography or however they present it. It's done with intent. It's not done to be something that, like I said, looks like a cover from a bad video game from 1990s. That bullshit that Pestilence did there, it reminds me of the face on the video game Carmageddon. But having reflected on it, I think one of the other problems, and I don't know if this is kind of just one of those things that's unspoken. Maybe people feel it subconsciously. Maybe people, have a very conscious concern about it. But I genuinely think that part of the beef that folks have with bands using AI artwork is that in the back of their minds, they're thinking, okay, how long is it before you get AI to start writing your riffs or writing entire songs? And I think that's a very fair concern and argument to have. And then to do what Pestilence did and actually pick an argument with your fans about that, that's just fucking stupid. I spoke about this being a crowded market, or you going into busy traffic. This isn't the fucking 1990s anymore, where relatively speaking, especially in the early 90s, there weren't as many bands that you could listen to. When a band like Pestilence brought out an album, it was a big deal. People got super excited about it because there wasn't a lot of other bands like that putting out music at the time. Now, there's 10 death metal bands putting out music at least every single Friday, and out of the 10, 2, 3 are genuinely pretty decent, or certainly interesting enough to merit a listen. So I think when you argue with your fans when they've simply voiced an opinion, you're fucking with their loyalty. And in this day and age, in 2024, you fuck with that loyalty at your peril. Because the saying of voting with your wallet, I think, applies to music. People will vote with their money. They'll vote with their feet. They won't go to your shows anymore, and they'll vote with their time. They'll just stop listening to you altogether, because why bother? I'm a massive Pestilence fan as far as their music is concerned. But I mean, just seeing that, it's just so distasteful to me. It repels me from wanting to support the band. Like, I almost feel like there's a taint now to walking around outside in a Pestilence t-shirt because of this shit. And Deicide, they didn't pick an argument, but they did post this weekend on Facebook their new album cover with a t-shirt that's got that stupid ass picture on it. And they limited the people that could comment on the on the post, which I thought was very interesting, very telling. Like, if your fans are telling you something sucks, why are you doubling down on it? It comes back to what I said at the very beginning of, or not the very beginning, what I said last week. There are a ton of artists that you could have approached on Instagram, and I bet you they would have been so flattered that you considered them that they would have done your artwork for you for free. I can name 2: Jason Pepiat of Psychroptic, Matt Prizzo of Sick and Conspiracy X, Spells of Torment. Both of those guys would have done top-tier artwork for a band like Deicide or a band like Pestilence free of charge. I'm 100% sure of it. So yeah, it's fucking lazy, it's stupid, it's unacceptable, and I do not approve of it. Is the short is the summary to that rant. Okay, let's move on. Mortar Skull, like I said, musically, nothing that is exciting me in any way whatsoever. Ultimass have unleashed a new track. The song is called Invictus. It says here, in the wake of their soon-to-be-released second album, epic death metal trio Ultimass has dropped the third new single in advance called Invictus. Both previous singles were superb. I am expecting nothing but good things from this one, therefore. I think this just confirms what I've said about the singles I've heard so far of this record. Something Wicked marches in, I think, was very much the band finding their feet, finding their sounds. 3 highly talented legends working together and kind of finding their rhythm. It wasn't a bad record whatsoever. But it wasn't a record that I think had lasting power, whereas so far every single thing that I've heard off of Epic sounds like that is absolutely not the case. Another great example. That chorus that we just got into now, pure magic in my opinion. And then everything else works brilliantly as well. David Vincent sounds great. Flo Monnier has never not sounded great. And Blasphemer is a fucking riff beast, a riff general, and he proves it on that song. That is excellent. I'm very, very much looking forward to seeing these guys play at Inferno. And a reminder, once again, if you are going to be at Inferno, come and say hello if you see me. I'll be there for the duration. And I'm also going to be a member of a panel that is taking place on the 28th of March. That's going to be at the hotel where the Inferno conference is. I don't know who's all going there, but if you are going there and you see me, great. Please don't boo when I walk on stage. I think our session is at 12 o'clock. It's going to be moderated by Katie Irizarry of Suspiria PR, who you should all know. Cheyenne, my brother Cheyenne's going to be there. A couple of other folks. And the topic is Podcast Killed the Radio Star. So, yeah, excited and very honored, I should say, to be doing that. But either way, I'm going to be there, meet some bands, listen to some bands, drink some beer, and take in the sights. But one band I will certainly be watching is Ultimass, especially after this song. This is fucking excellent. Let's listen to another 60 seconds. If I could level a slight, and it's very slight criticism at this, the only thing I would say is I would have liked a little bit more beef in the production. I feel I can, if I had to read why they might have produced the song the way that they did, and I would assume the rest of the record sounds the same, certainly does on the other singles. I think it's so that Blasphemer's riffs come out quite clearly. You know, they're intricate, they're melodic. You want that complexity to stand out, but I would have liked a little more low end rumble, a little bit more punch. Other than that, I love it. I think it's great, and I'm very much looking forward to hearing the rest of the record. We move on, my friends. I spoke earlier about Gatecreeper. They've got a new single out. It says here, Arizona death metal specialists Gatecreeper make their return with their first new track since 2021's album, An Unexpected Reality, titled Caught in the Treads. It was produced and mixed by Kurt Ballou. Now, when you talk about a great producer, I love the stuff that he does. He did, if memory serves me correctly, the mixing. I mean, he's done a lot, but the one I really loved was the last Strigway record. You talk about beef and punch. I mean, that album has it in fucking spades. Anyway, it says here, vocalist Chase H. Mason states, lyrically, the song is about a supernaturally charged fleet of tanks that have been possessed by the souls of fallen soldiers. I don't want to listen. I can't be asked to read the rest of that nonsense. Let's just hear what the music sounds like.
By the
I stand by what I said about Crawl. They are superior to Gatecreeper. That song's not bad, but it's not doing anything for me. Okay, let us progress, my friend, and see what else. My friends, and see what else we got here. It is the end of a long day, and I'm fucking tired. So hence why I'm. If I make a few mistakes or I'm not as articulate as I normally would be, please bear with. Disbelief have released an 11th, or are going to be releasing an 11th full-length album this spring. It says here, German veterans Disbelief are back with their 11th studio album announcement, dubbed Killing Karma. It will see its official release on the 26th of April via Listenable Records. Produced and mastered by Kai Stallenberg at Koller Keller Studios. Check out the first single, the album's title track, via YouTube Down Under. I do quite like Disbelief. That album cover looks suspiciously AI to me, but I'm going to park that until I've verified those claims. Let me shut the fuck up and let's hear what the song sounds like. That song is pleasant enough, but I will always have a soft spot in my heart for Disbelief by virtue of one thing. November the 4th, in the year of our Lord 2003, at the Camden Underworld, they played a show with, I'm trying to think who was all there. So it was Nemec, Mystic Prophecy, of course, ignore those two. Then Dark Ain played a set, great. Then Disbelief played a set, fucking magnificent, and Death Angel played a set, which was amazing, stole the show. But prior to Death Angel coming on stage, I did think that Disbelief had just stolen the show. They really, really did a superb job. Live, they are excellent. There's just like something about that rolling groove that they have that translates extremely well to the stage. On that particular night, anyway, it was fucking excellent. This song, I kind of feel about it the way that I feel about the album cover. I just don't really care. I don't necessarily think it's a good thing to be in any way indifferent to something. If indifference is even worse than hate, I think. Power Trip have announced their first show since the death of Riley Gale after nearly 4 years of an uncertain future following the unexpected death of frontman Riley Gale. Power Trip have announced a comeback which will take place at the Golden Voice sponsored punk festival No Values on June the 8th in Pomona, California. Replacing Gale will be Seth Gilmore of Fugitive and Scourge. And the band have indicated in a statement below that there are more shows in the works. I hope that there are not only more shows, but more albums in the works. Riley Gale was a superb frontman, there's no doubt about that. But as I said back when they did the first reunion show, which was kind of a surprise show, and Riley's family came out and they were very put out by the fact that the band had done that, the reality of it is it's not just one man that made that band. Every single person in that band contributed to its success, and they deserve to be able to, continue to reap the rewards of their hard work. Post Riley's departure from this mortal coil, and I don't think that's disrespectful to him. I'd be quite surprised if he would begrudge his fellow bandmates an opportunity to do that. And if he would, then he's not the man that I thought that he was. I'll leave it at that. But from my view or my perspective, I would love to hear some more Power Trip. I don't know what the vocalist sounds like. Will he have Riley's personality? And he's a chutzpah. I don't know. We'll find out soon enough, I hope. Rotting Christ is streaming a new single, Like Father, Like Son, the first single from Rotting Christ's upcoming studio album, Pro Christroy, has premiered in the form of an official music video. The new outing comes out on May the 24th. I still don't know exactly how to pronounce the name of the record, but we'll unravel that mystery at some point. For now, let's hear what the song sounds like. So I think the first thing to concede is that sadly they did not go the way that I had hoped they would, which was a return to the chaotic, violent sound of their post 2010 output. I really liked, actually Theogonia came out in 2007 and I fucking love that record. Ailo came out in 2010, magnificent. The record thereafter, whose name I shan't bother to pronounce. And then Rituals came out in 2016. I mean, that to me was... That midlife era of Rotting Christ is just absolutely extraordinary, and this is from somebody who discovered them way back on Non-Servium. It was the first time that I got my taste of Rotting Christ. I'd say overall my favorite Rotting Christ album still remains Triarchy of the Lost Lovers, but that period that I just referred to earlier, that to me was just phenomenal. And I'd hoped after the Heretics that they kind of gotten some of that epic metal out of their system and gone back to more of that abrasive, more aggressive sound. Doesn't seem like that is the case. That being said, I do quite like this. I think it confirms the view that I've long held, that had they not decided to call themselves Rotting Christ, this would be one of the biggest bands in metal, hands down. No doubt about it. You can just see a stadium completely respond to something like this. You can see this as a band that could have been massive. Had it not been for their decision to name their band after, a dead deity, and one that, just the name is just guaranteed to offend a bunch of people, rightly or wrongly, and that is why, they will forever kind of be confined to the underground. No bad thing for us, because, I in some ways, as much as I would love to see Sakis, because he's such a great guy, go on to have the fucking best life and the greatest success imaginable, I do love the fact that Rotting Christ has always felt special. It's always felt like our thing. And here's what I would say in summation before we go back to another 60 seconds of the song. Even though the direction of this new track isn't quite what I'd hoped it would be, Rotting Christ still feels like our thing, and they are still a band I think that can inspire real excitement when they put out a new record. And I mean, this is probably their 12th or 13th full-length album. I might be wrong on that, but yeah, they've been around for a hot minute. So let's get back to it.
Your voice is down here, so near, like father, like son.
Something else I'd remark as I'm listening to this song, it crops up in my head. When I had Sakis on the podcast, he really did feel to me like he'd gotten to that stage in his life where he was really reflecting and thinking back to, his past as a musician, his past as a human being. I think we're seeing a very soulful Sakis. It's reflected in his music. You could certainly hear it in his solo material that he put out last year and the year before. It's definitely in this as well. There's slight optimism, I would say, to the newer material. It's not nearly as dark as what it used to be. And it says here, the band comments of the new song, "Dear brothers and sisters, we can proudly present to you the first clip of our upcoming album, a song inspired by the strong relationship between a father and son, covered by a temple of soulful melodies like Father, like Son, gives you a taste of the epic metal sound behind our new album. Thanks for your attention. We hope you'll enjoy our new creation. There are many more to come. Stay tuned for updates." So let me know what you guys think in the comments, but I think that's great. It earns a thumbs up. I'm not sure I'm quite ready to give it a top notch just yet, but it certainly earns a thumbs up. Let's see if there's one or two more, and then let's make our way to the Democrats' Guide to Rock Music and see if there's anything that we can check out there. The guitarist for Machine Head has left the band. Naturally, I'm devastated by that. Antichrist Siege Machine are about to put out a third album. Good news if you're a fan of Antichrist Siege Machine, as I am, because I will be getting Scott from the band on the podcast at some point very soon. It says here, the new Antichrist Siege Machine album, Vengeance of Eternal Fire, is completed and ready to be unleashed through Profound Law Records on April the 19th. Recorded and mixed by Matt Mitchell at Viva Studios. Vocals recorded by Bob Quirk. Mastered by Arthur Rick. The Richmond, Virginia-based duo also present the first track in advance called Cicera. They are photographed there carrying assault rifles, which I'm sure will have at least a portion of the 2A opponents up in arms on Metal Twitter. That being said, I think they fucking rule. I think that those photos, or that photo, looks cool. Let's hear what the song sounds like. Not the kind of music you're going to be wheeling out when you're taking a lady out for a night on the town. You're trying to set the mood for lovemaking, but I think that's fucking excellent. I know the song, so I may as well just admit that I've already listened to it many times, which is why I was so keen for Scott to come on the podcast. But I thought let's stir some excitement. Okay, one more song, and then it's on to Blabbermouth and Midnight have unveiled their new track. It's called Nuclear Savior. It says as part of their hellish expectations, due on March the 8th via Metal Blade Records, Cleveland, Ohio-based Midnight present the Nuclear Savior. Last time we heard a track by them, it was Fuck Off and Live, which was actually pretty decent, in spite of having a questionable name. So let's hear what Nuclear Savior sounds like.
And already been dead.
Love it. Catchy, well produced. I like the rawness. I've always liked the vocals in Midnight. That I can't remember what the song was, but the cover that they did of Motorhead, as a matter of fact, let's listen to that real quick, because just because I feel like hearing it. But yeah, that cover that they did was fucking cool. Yeah, I think that song just works. It works on every level. So they did Dirty Love. I thought it might have been Dirty Love. Like I was dithering between the Chase is better than the Catch and Dirty Love. Let's just very quickly hear this, because again, I thought his vocals on this absolutely ruled. The best Motorhead cover, in my opinion, ever. Maybe Sepultura's Orgasmatron comes close, but I think it's a fucking brilliant cover. And there's three Motorhead songs that just cannot help but get a smile on, or put a smile on my face. Dirty Love, The Chase is Better Than the Catch, and Orgasmatron, like their version of Orgasmatron. But those two in particular, actually, and I'd add We Are the Road Crew to that as well. But yeah, what a fucking great cover. And as I said, I just love the vocals on that, which is why I wanted to hear it again. Okay, folks, let's take a quick stroll over to the Democrats' Guide to Rock Music Blabbermouth and see what's on there. Young Dimebag lookalike joins Pantera on stage to sing Fucking Hostile. Now, before we actually look at that video, and that is a uncanny, that young man bears an uncanny resemblance to Dimebag. I saw Zakk Wylde talking about potentially making music with the three gentlemen that he's out on tour with, Charlie Benante, Phil Anselmo, and Rex Brown. And he said in the article that and this was on Blabbermouth, I'm just mentioning it now in case we don't get to it. He said in the article he's open to making new music with them, but they wouldn't be able to do it under the name Pantera. So I am going to just make a bold prediction right here and now. Those four guys are putting out a new album inside of the next 24 months. 18 to 24 months is the time frame that I'd give it. And if they don't do it as Pantera, which I still think it's 50-50 whether they'll do it as Pantera or not, they're going to put it out as Blacktooth Grin. That's going to be my that's going to be my prediction. Blacktooth Grin, because that was Dimebag's favorite cocktail. The cocktail he would apparently inflict alcohol poisoning on everybody backstage with. It feels like that would be a nice tribute if that's the way that they wanted to position it. But then again, I can very easily see someone, an industry type perhaps, or maybe even somebody in the band, talk them around to the idea that putting the record out as a Pantera album is the way to go. Like I said, I wouldn't agree with that. I do think that you should, if you're going to make music, do it. You could even make it in the style of Pantera. It's not going to sound like Pantera because it doesn't have the greatest guitarist and drummer combination in the history of music to power it. That's just a fact. So I would say do it as something that's a genuinely affectionate tribute, and an affectionate tribute would be calling it Blacktooth Grin. And in an ideal world, get a second guitarist in named Kirk Winstein, have him throw a couple of chops in there, a couple of grooves as well. But anyway, that being said, let's look at Mini Dime and Phil doing Fucking Hostile on this video.
That indeed. I mean, there's only one, but
Some people might believe in reincarnation and stuff like that, but there could be a young Dimebag right up front. Dude, just shake your head like that, everybody in the whole place will see it. Hey, turn up the lights and show it. Look at that light. When I first met Dime, his lid was exactly.
Right, we're gonna fast forward. The guy has got, basically, if you're listening to this and you're not watching it on YouTube, he's got some big ass hair. He looks either like Dimebag or the dude from the Mars Volta, whose name escapes me now. He does look like he was ready to play. He's got like the sweatbands on his arms and everything. Yeah, let's skip ahead until we actually think we're going to get to the business end of some music. Let's hear if this kid has got the vocals to go with the look. Right, get that man away from a microphone. I'm sure he had the time of his life. Good for him. But yeah, I'm not sure he's not cut out for the. Maybe he can be a drummer. Maybe he can be the bassist. He's definitely not cut out for the microphone. Okay, plans are approved for a statue of Motorhead frontman Lemmy in his UK birthplace. I'm sure that'll soon be defaced and covered in graffiti, bird shit, and everything else that goes along with the general decay in the United Kingdom. Rob Halford, Judas Priest has broken the rules as to how heavy metal should sound and feel what it should say. Don't necessarily agree with that, but he can have his opinion. King Diamond offers an update on new music from Merciful Fate and his namesake band. Let's check this one out. It says in a new interview with Sam Azevedo of El Planeta del Rock, legendary Danish heavy metal singer King Diamond spoke about the recording and touring plans for both King Diamond and Merciful Fate. He said, "We are not supposed to play any shows this year. We're very busy. Both Merciful Fate and King Diamond are writing new material. King Diamond is also preparing production for the upcoming new album's release and tour. The first tour, hopefully, will happen. They're planning it right now in the US at the end of the year and with a brand new album. That'll be the first album of 2 in that story." So he's got more plans than just the next couple of records, which is nice to hear if you're a King Diamond and Merciful Fate fan. And Merciful Fate are writing as well and recording. King Diamond's album will be out first. It's where we ended when COVID came. The record label told us Metal Blade Records were continuing from the same place where we stopped. And that was going to be the next King Diamond album, and that's what's going to happen next. So, long story short, new tours, new albums in the work. Seem like that'll be 2025. Once again, I'm sure most of you will already have seen King Diamond play live, but if you haven't had the pleasure of doing so, even if you hate the guy, then make sure that you go and watch him play live, and trust me, you will come out a believer. The live King Diamond experience is extraordinary. It's not quite Rammstein, but it is fucking cool. Folks, outside of that, there's not a whole bunch more attracting my attention. Mick Mars says he will write his autobiography when he's dying. I don't want to be that way, but he looks like death may already be around the corner for him. It's not. I don't mean that in a mean way, but the guy doesn't look healthy. Let's put it that way. Exhorters, Kyle Thomas. I think it's a good thing Pantera is back in business. I agree. There's news here about Slayer reuniting, and then we learn that Al Jorgensen says Ministry's next album will be the band's last. I think it's a good time to stop. We have heard him say that many times before, and we know for an absolute fact that he will change his mind within 18 months of having put out whatever trash is to follow Hopium for the Masses, which hasn't even come out yet at the time that I'm recording this. I think that's due out in the beginning of March. That will obviously go one step further towards denigrating Ministry's legacy. Whatever comes after that will be shit as well. I had hoped that he was finally going to do the Lard record he's been promising us, but I'm assuming that's also not going to be taking place. One more article, and then we will we'll finish up for this installment of the news rant. The 30th anniversary of the most important month in black metal history. It says here, the second wave of black metal served as a cultural and musical revolution, characterized by a fierce independence from mainstream practices and the radicalization of extreme aesthetics. This movement wasn't merely about music, but was a cultural response and spiritual upheaval. And we are reading this on We Are the Pit, by the way. The article goes on to list some of the records that came out in February 1994. On February 17th, 1994, Dark Throne's seminal Transylvanian Hunger hit the record store shelves. On February 21st, Emperor's full-length album In the Nightside Eclipse was released. Both of those obviously absolutely incredible. Enslaved released their debut on February 22nd, 1994. Cradle of Filth dropped their debut on February 24th, 1994. That, of course, was the Principle of Evil Made Flesh. No mention here of the Mysteries Dom Satanas, because I think that came out a fair bit later that year. And that, in my opinion, is one of the most important albums in all of black metal. And so that is the true, much like Mayhem call themselves the true Mayhem, that is the true most important month in black metal. At least that's my view. May 24th, 1994 was when The Mysteries Dom Satanas was released. But Transylvanian Hunger and In the Nightside Eclipse, not far off. In the Nightside Eclipse in particular, for me, that was an album that was personally incredibly influential. And I will never in my entire life forget sitting in my friend's bedroom. My friend Andre, we had this habit of buying in bulk as many CDs as we could possibly afford from Nuclear Blast. Given it was South Africa, you had to wait several months for the shit to arrive, and when it did, it was like every single one of your Christmases all come at once. But I remember hearing that intro that starts the record, and then when Into the Infinity of Thoughts kicks in, it just blew my mind. And that album, to me, from start to finish, is just perfect atmospheric black metal. Whether it's The Burning Shadows of Silence, which has this fucking badass breakdown towards the kind of middle of it, or it's Beyond the Great Vast Forest, towards the Pantheon, I'm the Majesty of the Night Sky. There's just not a bad second on the record. It is a masterpiece from start to finish, and I may have my feelings about Ishon of the modern day, but the Ishon of 1994 was a fucking badass. One of the greatest badasses in all of black metal. And on that note, my friends, I think it's time for us to wrap up for this week. A very big thank you if you have stuck around until this point in the podcast. I will be back next week. I've got a couple of guests in the pipeline, but knowing how superstitious I am, it probably shouldn't come as a surprise to you to know that I will not share who those people are until the episodes are well and truly in the bank. I don't think you're going to complain, though. I have a suspicion folks are going to be very, very pleased indeed with probably the next 4 weeks or so worth of guests that I've got. Not that you had anything to complain about with Matteo. Slightly shorter conversation than I would normally have, but he's a great dude, and that Bewitcher retrospective is fucking awesome. Make sure you check it out. Big thank you, of course, to Matteo for coming on the podcast. Big thank you to you guys, the Legion, for listening to this episode, for doing all of the shares, the likes, the comments, everything that you do to help promote the podcast week in and week out. Not something that I will ever take for granted. And on that note, I'd like to wish you and your nearest and dearest a great week ahead. Whatever it is you're doing, wherever it is you are, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you bad motherfuckers again next week.